turn the AC off. That'll make it a lot quieter. I'll deal with the heat for a few minutes. If I can do that without disconnecting my phone and losing my balance and falling and knocking a bunch of stuff over. Alright, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Gotta get my leg out of the way. 8 o'clock at night, natural daylight. Sun's glaring in my eyes, but I think I can read by it and have good lighting for it, so you can see me. 1, 2, 3. Why is it facing me? Slamming into the camera on the tripod. Oh. I can do it. I think I can do it. I think I can do it. A little train that could. Come on. Balance. Balance, 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 balance. Silence is golden, golden. But my eyes still see. Okay. There we go. Okay, the cord's moving it, not me. Nothing I can do about that except maybe put some pressure on the cord with the weight. Yeah. There we go. Not bad. Glasses. Gotta have glasses. Okay. So, sun's in my... I'm not going to adjust the blind because it just makes it... Hey, Deborah Perry, how you doing, darling? Dear sister, how you doing? Oh, I'm alive. We're having a 4th of July. Not much of one, but we didn't do anything special today or over the weekend just because so many people have been sick. About 6 people around here have been sick in our community, and just wasn't. Bill and Shirley weren't up to it, so just bagged the whole thing. Okay, cause for celebration. And if you've been following along, great. If you haven't, you can go back and listen to them. They're all on my channel. Might as well search and do a search for them. Put in the title of the book and number, chapter, whatever, 25, 24, 23. So hopefully everybody can get caught up and stay caught up. I've been making comments as I go somewhat. So, personal application, things I'm seeing, interpretation of the story, that type of thing. So, wish I'd done more of that with Lights Out, man. There was so many good things to comment on there, and I didn't do it. About one every 5 or 6, 7, maybe 10 chapters, I did a commentary, and I wish I would have done more of that, though. Okay, cause for celebration. Susan rubbed her eyes and looked again. Never in her life had she seen anything close to such a person. The great light wasn't just coming from him, it was him. He seemed to shimmer, yet one had the feeling that his light was covered greatly, as if he were holding back so they wouldn't be blinded by such light. They're seeing the Prince King, the King of Kings. Both children, though still sitting down, bowed at the same time. There was no other choice. The stillness of the moment seemed to last forever. Don't be afraid, the King's Prince said. His voice, like his appearance, seemed restrained, as if he were speaking only in a whisper when he was capable of much more. Stand before me. The children struggled to get to their feet. Susan swallowed hard, staring. She wondered if it were polite to stare, but nothing in the whole universe could have drawn her eyes away from his face. The King's son smiled on them. Such a smile made her feel as if he had known her forever, and then she realized deep down that he really had known her forever. Susan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She felt as if she would explode with the excitement inside. Okay. I have a flashlight somewhere. Sun's setting. I can see it going behind the trees out there, so I'm going to have to get some artificial lighting on. Oh, what's wrong? There we go. Oh, come on. No. I don't want it on motion sensor. Yeah, I'm trying to get it so you can see my face and see my lips, so you can read lips. My wife used to say all the time, let me put my glasses on so I can hear you better. You know, seeing the lips helps you know what people are saying. Okay, I'll just hold the light with my hand. I can't prop it up. She felt as if she would explode from the with the excitement inside. Speak, the king's son commanded. I've read about you, Susan stammered. She immediately felt foolish and looked down. John stepped forward to speak, but when he opened his mouth, his voice cracked and no words came out. He stared down, embarrassed. Fear not, the king's son said simply. The hour is coming when the kingdom will drive out all darkness forever. But until then, there is work to do. His voice seemed so ordinary, yet at the same time he could speak with an authority and power that Susan had never known. His words cut straight to Susan's heart in an electric chill of excitement. She felt 1,000 things all at once, yet more than anything, she felt flooded with peace. Though he stood in their midst, Susan had the sense that he was far away, too. He seemed to stand in his own special sense of time and was sharing that time with the two children alone. She couldn't see his feet, only light. Why did you come to us? Susan asked in simple curiosity. I'd never been gone, even from the beginning, the king's prince smiled. And where two or more of our kingdom are gathered, I am there in a special way. I am with them in a special way. Those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, know me. I guess I've just been reading about you. Susan asked. Susan said, and I've known all the words and stories, but not you. Don't be dismayed, Susan, the prince said softly. You have done well, but you must know the life in the words, and I am the words of life. To the ones who receive my gifts, I give more. To the one who... Just light. Oh, man. Turn the overhead light on where I need it, so I can read by it. Try this different. That's better. Okay, now. Yeah. Okay, he's talking to Susan. You have done well, but you must know the life in the words, and I am the words of life. To the ones who receive my gifts, I give more. To the one who longs to see, I give the gift of vision. Cover your eyes with blessing. Learn to truly see me in the words, and also in that vision that surpasses knowledge. Okay, so we've got to need to know him. Susan looked down. In her hand was a pair of old leather and glass goggles like the kind aviators used to wear. Embedded between the two eyepieces were 3 tiny golden crowns. On the straps was a simple label written in flowing white letters, Spirit Flyer Vision. Thank you, Susan murmured in surprise. She had seen a pair of similar goggles before which belonged to Grandfather Kramer. She never dreamed she would have a pair of her own. She squeezed the old goggles tightly. The king's prince smiled on her. Then he looked at John. John quickly looked down. In a moment he felt filled with shame and began weeping, echoing the sounds of the weeping in the distant darkness. The boy saw in an instant the many times he had betrayed himself and others in the last weeks. Your tears speak well for your heart, the prince said softly. The time of weeping will end in joy, but be warned. The king gives good gifts, so they will be received and used. Many are the battles that lie ahead. Without me, you can do nothing in this world. You have not learned that lesson. Instead, you have felt the pull of the chain and fallen into darkness. You cannot serve the king and search for the treasures of this world too. I give you gifts more precious than gold. Take them, use them, and follow me. The boy nodded, wiping his eyes. At that moment, John knew everything was okay. A great weight lifted off the boy. The pull of the chain is gone for now, the prince said, smiled. You wish to ask something? A look of surprise crossed the boy's face. He hadn't even formed the words of his question. Will I always be making big mistakes like this? John asked. Let me lower this a little bit. I think. See my voice better. Will I always be making big mistakes like this? John asked. Until all things are ready, there is danger in the pull of the chains, the prince said. But for every danger you can escape if you look to me and the power that I give through my gifts. The light of the kingdom is stronger than darkness, but you must either choose my gifts or you accept the pull of the chains. What about the other person that looked like John? Susan asked. And I saw one of me too. Are we two people deep inside? Will we always be fighting ourselves in the chains? Susan closed her mouth quickly. She wondered if it was proper to ask so many questions at once. But the prince smiled, and she knew he appreciated her interest. He wanted her to ask questions. You're the only one, as I am one, and I and you, the king's son answered. But listen well. The locks on the chains are broken. The slave you were is gone, dead. You have a new life of freedom because of me. You are citizens in the kingdom of the kings. Then who is that person that looks like me? John asked. He seems so real. That is a slave you once were before the power of the chains was broken, the prince replied. Though the slave is dead, he can haunt you like a ghost. He is called the ghost slave and exists only as a lie. But a lie can become a danger when it is believed. The ghost slave feeds off of your fear. He whispers lies that the chains still control you, that you are still a slave. If you believe these lies, then the ghost slave becomes stronger. He'll try to make all kinds of deals and contracts with you, but they're all lies. The biggest danger of the chain is that it can pull the ghost slave up out of the darkness, so you are tempted to believe his tragic lies more than my truth. But fear not, I have overcome the darkness, and I am in you. Because of me, you have overcome the chains. If you will only discover it, you are free children of the kingdom. Those who have eyes to see will see. The prince was silent. The sound of weeping could be heard in the distance. Who's crying? Susan asked. Over in the crowd, many adults were totally asleep, but sobbing quietly. They cry for the children, the prince said quietly, and they cry for themselves because they have tasted freedom, yet remained as slaves asleep in the hour of need. You mean they were like me? John asked. Other people in town have spirit flyers too that they don't use? Many in the town have wasted their gifts, the king's son said. In search of the toys and trinkets and other things, they miss the true treasures that are freely given. So many trade true treasures for a handful of ashes, and so they weep and are blind. They sleep, lost in the ashes of death. But these gifts don't have to be lost forever. You must use them, stir them up. Receive them fully with the love in which they were given, and that is my message. That is my message to you. Oh, fire. I don't believe it. We're going to have a fire, okay. Whippy-ki-yay. I was thinking about having a fire, but I'm not going to. Not tonight. Too hot. Okay. Then the king's son turned. He stretched out his arms toward the townspeople. In the voice of 1,000 blaring trumpets, he called out, Awake, sleepers, arise from the dead, and light will shine on you. The voice rocked through Susan so she could hardly stand. In a flash of light and music, the sky rolled back and thunder crashed. The two children fell to the ground as a mighty rushing wind passed over them. Then light was gone as quickly as it had come. Susan opened her eyes. Everything had changed. People were talking and some screaming. Smoke and ashes and sparks fell softly over the town like rain. All the people of Centerville were suddenly awake as the crack between time closed and the dream into the deeper world had ended. Time began once more, as if someone had started a clock. Everything returned to the same instant right before it had stopped. Only two things had changed. Susan and John and the two old red bicycles were out in the field, and Mrs. Happy and the Crow were nowhere in the crowd. The mayor of the town struggled through the commotion to the microphone. The panic seemed to be quieting. It's all right, the mayor said. He looked up over his shoulder at the sky where the fiery serpent had been. The fireworks are over, I think. Someone began to clap, then another and another. Soon the applause was deafening. The big field lights were turned on. With the lights on, the people cheered because they didn't know what else to do. The mayor held up his hands and smiled. Well, that's a display of firepower we haven't seen in this town before, the mayor said, his voice cracking. That was all planned, folks, to give us a thrill, so don't fret. The fire department had everything under control. I don't know how they do it, but it certainly had me on my toes. What a way to end our Independence Day. Good night, everybody. The crowd cheered once more. The people began moving around, packing up, loading stuff in their cars. The awful smelling smoke drifted through the crowd while ashes floated down. People still coughed. Everyone in there seemed in a better mood. Though many people had a nagging sense deep inside that something unusual had happened, the feelings was soon forgotten as they loaded up their cars and trucks. Without speaking, Susan and John hugged each other. Then they picked up their spirit flyers and hopped on. They sat on the comfortable old seats and watched the people leaving. You think any of them knows what's happened? John said. It's like we saved them almost, and none of them even knows. No, and you probably couldn't tell them because they were asleep, Susan said. I'm not even sure I understand very well, but I know things are okay, at least for now. We stopped whatever Mrs. Happy had planned, whatever was going on inside that snake, because we were there to turn on the light. We helped break the order of the chains, at least for a time. That was what we were supposed to do. And I almost messed the whole thing up trying to get those stupid toys, John said sadly. But it's okay now, Susan said. She patted her cousin on the back. I guess there'll always be toys just out of reach, making us blind to the real treasures, like he said. Deep down I knew I should put the instruments back on the spirit flyer, John said. Grandpa told me to wait, and he warned me about those chains. I really did know better. But since I didn't wait and put the gear lever on the wrong the first time, I got mad when it didn't work like I wanted. That's when I made the deal not to use any of the instruments. I figured they didn't really work, and besides, I thought I was going to get all those toys if I did what they told me. I believe their lies. Sometimes I think I'll never learn. John looked down. He gripped the handlebars on his spirit flyer, and he sighed loudly. I read in the Book of the Kings that's the best way to find out how spirit flyers work is to just use them, Susan said. You learn by doing. I knew that, but still didn't really do it. I wanted to wait and read how everything worked first. If they hadn't kept blowing the horn, I would have probably never woken up. Reading about how the instruments was important, but you have to use them to really discover how they work. Well, the instruments are all on now, John said with a sigh. Spirit flyers are sort of like Christmas gifts, Susan said. No one would leave their presents in boxes under the tree. You have to unwrap them and play with them, John said and giggled. Sometime he felt the joy he had once known of just sitting on the old red bicycle. Susan held up the old leather goggles. She ran her fingers over the 3 golden crowns. I think we're going to like this gift, she said, beginning to feel the excitement of a child opening a present. Me too, John said. Let's go home and try it out now. Who knows what we'll see with them. Not good stuff. Race you, Susan said and giggled. In an instant, the children were standing on the pedals of the old red bicycle, speeding across the field. The faster they pedaled the spirit flyers, the more refreshed and happy they felt. By the time they got home, neither one cared who won the race. They had seen the King of Kings, the Prince of Kings, and that was cause enough for anyone to celebrate. Okay. 2 more, chapter 27, close for inventory, and 28, the greatest gift of all. All right, good night. Check out our local fireworks, our local redneck fireworks, burning trash. By the way, I'm having issues with my phone. It's been heating up and turning off an awful lot. I think it's about time I got to get a new phone, which really stinks. They seem to plan that about every 2 years, Bummer.